probably make as long a lasting problem in a marriage. There are a lot of problem areas, and we've discussed a lot of problem areas, but few things have the effect that financial problems have on the marriage, because it affects the entire family. It affects the children as well as the husband and wife. There are some things that a couple who are contemplating marriage need to understand about finances, and Brother Counselor, it's your position, it's your place to share it with them. First of all, they need to understand that you need a budget. Everybody needs a budget. Your income may be very, very minute. You may not have very many bills, but you need a budget. The reason, the purpose behind the budget is so that you can control your spending. It is that when it's on a piece of paper, you realize what you're spending and why you are spending it, and how much of your income is going in certain areas, and you're able to control it. You're able to see it, and by being able to see it, you're able to much easier control it. All big companies, and even our government, though our government's a poor example of a good budget because they never stay with it, and it really means absolutely nothing, and so many times that's the way budgets go, but that's not a good example of a budget. But a good run company, a well-run company, one who stands the times and tides of good time, but also stands the winds and storms of a rocky economy and stays strong and firm, is a company that's got a budget and watches that budget very closely so that they know how to make cuts, and so that they know how to stay strong, so that they completely control the money rather than the money controlling them. I think a church is extremely unwise if a church doesn't have a budget and doesn't stay with that budget and control the money that God has given them to be stewards of. But more importantly, it is that we as individuals, we need to be the very best stewards that God has given us to be, or that we can be. And one of the ways that we do that is by controlling the money that God has given to us. The Bible teaches us that to whom much is given, much is required. That means that as God gives a lot, or God prospers us, that the responsibilities grow even that much more. But you need a budget. And right before you get married, as you are planning the wedding, you need to sit down, and you need to sit down with a budget, or make a budget right from the very beginning. And Brother Counselor, you need to sit down with this couple that you are counseling, and you need to help them set the budget. Well, how do you set the budget? Well, first of all, you've got to take all your regular bills, all the bills that they know that they'll be facing, the rent on the apartment or house that they're living in, or the mortgage payment of the house that they're buying, all of the utility bills, and you have to consider everything, the water bill, the gas bill, the electric bill, the phone bill, the garbage pickup, or whatever bill that there might be included with it. Write these down, the utility bills, car payments you might have, any outstanding debts, if you borrowed money before you married, or any outstanding credit card debts, those need to be included. They need to be written down. Any insurance, car insurance, life insurance, health insurance, everything that you pay out on a regular basis, it needs to be included and written down on the budget. There also needs to be an entry there for miscellaneous expenses, and the amount that you might include for miscellaneous expenses. The way to determine that is by looking at what you've done in the past, the unexpected car bills, repair bills, unexpected doctor bills. In a good budget, you're going to put a place for car repair or car maintenance and gasoline. You're also going to put a place for medical expenses, even though you are in good health, and even though you may not take medication on a regular basis, you will put some aside so that when the time for a regular checkup comes, or an eye exam, or even a dentist, the need for a dentist, teeth cleaning, or a cavity filled, or whatever it is, you'll have the money without putting a strain on the regular budget. Problem without a budget is that you may meet your bills. You pay your regular bills, and if you got any money left at the end of the month, you spend it, and then you don't have anything left. Or you may put a little aside, but not much aside. So the month when that car insurance hits, if it hits once every 6 months, the month it hits, it hurts bad, because you got to take that out along with your regular expenses, and you're just not prepared for it. Or the months that whatever it is that you might pay quarterly, or whatever it is that you might pay yearly or don't pay on a regular basis or on a monthly basis, or a month when a big car expense comes due, when you have a motor that goes bad, or when you have a fuel pump that goes out and you have to put the fuel pump on the car. That takes a big chunk out and it hurts, and you may start out behind the next month, and one time you start out behind, you're playing catch up for a long, long time before it ever becomes easy again. So the solution is to set a budget, and every month you put over into an account, and this account will just be on paper. On a piece of paper, you may have 12 different accounts set up here. You got an account over here for your car expenses. And in that car expense, it may include gasoline. It may include car repair. It may include tires. It may include anything that has to do with the maintenance and upkeep and car payment of that car. Well, your car payment may be $240 a month. It may be a relatively new car, so you're not expecting a lot of repair. So you may put $25 a month aside for repair. So $240 plus $25 for repair, so that's $265. You may spend on the average of $60 a week for gasoline. So 60 times 4 would be $240, and you figure a little bit more for the 5-week month, or to figure it in. So you're looking at somewhere around $260. So altogether you're looking at a little over $500. So you put that figure at a little over $500 a figure every month. You put it aside. Divide that by 4. If you get paid weekly, divide that 500 and some odd dollars, multiply that times 12, and then divide it by 52, and come out with a weekly figure. And then you put that over here every week. This portion of my check, and I hadn't put it down on paper, I don't know exactly what it is, but say it's $75 a week or $85 a week. So every week out of my paycheck, $85 of it I'm going to deposit on a piece of paper in this account over here marked automobile. Okay, when my car payment comes due, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to withdraw the amount of my car payment from my car account. So you do that with everything that you owe, with insurances. Your insurance may not come due once every 6 months, but if you'll put aside how much it is by the week, if your insurance is, say, $400 every 6 months, then you need to take that $400 and multiply it times 2, $800. That's for the year, and then divide that by 52, the number of weeks in the year, and whatever that figure comes out to be, every week out of your paycheck, put that in your account marked insurance. And you do that for all of your expenses. If you want to buy furniture, you kind of determine about how much you're going to expend for furniture, and determine how long you want to get it in, maybe in a year and a half or 2 years. So you take that amount and divide it by a year and a half, or take the number of weeks in a year and a half and divide that amount out, and set you out here an account for furniture, and every week faithfully put into that. You won't have much money left at the end of the week by setting a budget or by doing it this way. You won't have a lot of extra money to spend on frivolous things, but you won't have any emergencies, or you won't have those months that hurt real bad that you have to play catch-up from for 2 or 3 months, or it makes a strain in order to meet your regular obligations. Setting a budget is absolutely essential. Let's say that the Flintstones would be an average couple. Well, Fred and Wilma Flintstones. Fred works at Bedrock Rock and Gravel, where he brings home $450 a week after his deduction. His company pays for his retirement, and they also pay for his hospitalization insurance. So Wilma works part-time. She sells Boulder Cosmetics, and she makes on the average of $175 per week. Well, Fred and Wilma's utilities average $175, or average $97 a week. They live in an apartment. It's all electric, so they don't have any gas or water. Their telephone is $45 per month on the average. They got a 2-year-old car, and the payments on this 2-year-old car are $245 per month. Fred has a life insurance policy with a monthly premium of $24.75. They subscribe to the Bedrock Morning News, and that's $6.75 a month. They live in the Dinosaur Arms Apartments, and they pay $425 a month, which includes the garbage pickup and the gas and water. And they pay $6 or $9.95 a month for cable television. Well, they also have a tenant homeowner policy that would cover their furniture in case of a fire or theft, and it's $45 a month. Fred and Wilma are both Christians. They understand the principle that the very first thing they take out of their check is the tithe. So the tithe, that tenth, comes off first off of both of their earnings. They also don't want to depend on Wilma's salary, that average of $175 out there. So they fix their budget up on the $450 that Fred brings home every week. They take all of these things that they owe. They figure out how much weekly they are paying for those things. They spend $28 a week to go out to eat and to a show. Friday night's their night. They go out to eat and go to a show and go to the mall or just spend time together. That's a regular expense. They include that in. They also spend about $60 a week for gasoline, so they include that in. They spend about $70 a week on groceries at the grocery store, so they figure that in. All these expenses, they figure out where out of Fred's salary, weekly, they put in every one of these accounts, individual accounts. It all goes into one account in the bank, but on the paper, they have about 12 different accounts that they put a little bit of his salary in every week, so that when the expense that comes out of this account occurs, it occurs without creating a great problem or a great burden on the whole account. A budget's not something new. A budget's something that's been around for a long time, but it's an absolute necessity if you want to be a good steward. You got to know where your money is. You got to know how you're spending your money. You got to know where your needs are in order to prepare for oncoming needs. Let me say this too. Brother Counselor, nobody's in a position like you are to share with a couple who's come to you for your advice about marriage and asking you to marry them about tithing. There's no greater don't ever be ashamed to mention tithing. Don't ever think that they will think, well, they're just asking for money, or he's a preacher and that's the way he's supposed to look at it. Just remember that if you don't share the principle of tithing with you, you rob them of a blessing. You deny them the privilege of knowing that God will take the 90% that's left after the tithe has been given, and He'll stretch it to meet more needs. You deny them the privilege of knowing that God will take that that's left after they've given with a full heart, and He'll bless it, and He'll multiply it in many ways, even beyond money and even beyond material things within their life. You deny them that right when you deny the teaching of tithing. Not only of tithing, but of giving. The Bible teaches a principle that's totally foreign to human nature, that's totally foreign to anything that we learn in society, and that's that it's more blessed to give than it is to receive. Marriage is not a 50-50 proposition. It never was intended to be. It never will be. If a marriage is to survive and be happy and be good, it's not a 50-50. It's a 95-5. Giving 95%, expecting 5 back on both sides. You give, and God gives back. You give for the purpose of that person's needs, and not to gain, but God always gives. You just can't outgive God. God's so big and so great and so strong, and that's a principle that it's your responsibility to teach in counseling as you talk to them and as you give to them. Let me just say a few words about credit cards. Credit cards are a cancer to marriage. Credit cards can destroy a marriage very, very fast. It's not necessarily wrong to have credit cards, but it's extremely bad to misuse credit cards, and credit cards can be... Do you realize of all the credit cards that you can get, a couple reasonably could sit down and apply for every credit card that they could think of and could be given that. And within the reasonable limit that they always set on new couples' credit limits on the credit account, that within just a little while you could have over $500,000 charged own credit cards within the limits that they've given you. 19% of $500,000 is beyond my math ability, but it's beyond the capability of any married. I counseled with a young lady and a young man seeking to get married not long ago, and they were trying to wait and trying to get some things together because while they were in college, they were sent credit cards that they'd never applied for, but they used the credit cards. And by the time he got out of college, he owed over $25,000 on credit cards and had absolutely nothing to show for it. It wasn't a car, it wasn't many clothes, but he had absolutely nothing to show for it because credit was so easy and because it was given. That was a tremendous obstacle to overcome beginning a marriage. It was a strain that they were having to live with because of misuse and mismanagement. Credit cards can destroy a marriage. It can put a strain on a good relationship. So be very, very careful with the use of credit cards. Never buy anything that's not budgeted on credit cards. Do you realize that credit card companies charge stores, department stores, and places that use Visa and MasterCard and Discovery, they charge that store owner anywhere from 5 to 7.5% of the price of the object that you're buying? Do you know why that merchant is willing to pay 5% or 7.5% on what he's selling you? It's that much less profit for him. It's because statistics hold out that you're going to buy over 25% more on a credit card than what you would buy if you were paying cash for. Because it's so easy just to lay the plastic down there and get to things you think you can't live without, but you very well could have lived without. So never buy a budgeted item, or never buy anything except a budgeted item when you use a credit card, and then only when you have to, and then not as an impulse. Never buy on the impulse on credit. Misuse of credit cards can cost you for years and years and years and put an undue strain on something that's difficult right from the very beginning in marriage to begin with. Now, Brother Counselor, I want to speak to you for just a minute in closing. Your responsibility in the wedding and to the couple who is now in your charge to share. All the biblical responsibilities, all the problem areas of life that you have encountered by experience of being a pastor or being in the Lord's work or being in counseling in any way, it's your responsibility to share those in order to avoid possible problems and possible situations that couple may give. If your heart is where it needs to be with the Lord, you have a desire to want only the very best for that couple that sits before you. Don't ever be afraid or ashamed or think they know more about it than you do. Just open your heart and open your mind with what God shares with you to that couple. Let them know of the areas that they probably don't have any knowledge of, but even if they do have knowledge of, remind them again and again so that it's impressed upon their mind, so that they can be as well equipped as possible to make what God's made so very beautiful, a beautiful relationship between them, and not let the strains and the pulls of Satan in this old world destroy what God has made wonderful and beautiful. In the service itself, there are a lot of things that everybody has their own pet services and own pet vows maybe, or the way that you conduct a service. Let me encourage you to do several things. Realize who you're talking to and who you're talking about. At the very beginning of a service, when I marry a couple, and I'm not suggesting you use this as your vow, I'm using it as an example. In the very beginning of the service, as the couple comes before me, I address the congregation on the outside to declare publicly why we are here. I usually say something to this effect: Dearly beloved, we're gathered together in the presence of God and in the face of this company to join Joe Smith and Belinda Doolittle in holy matrimony, which was commended of the Apostle Paul to be honorable among all men, and therefore is not to be entered upon lightly or unadvisedly, but reverently, discreetly, and in fear of God. It's into this holy estate that these two now have come. In that address, you've reminded the congregation that marriage is a very holy institution. It's no mere coincidence that we are inside a church and the minister is performing the ceremony. This is God's institution. This is God's plan. Remind those who are in attendance that this is a holy order. It's blessed, it's sanctioned, it's ordained of God. It's something very sacred and very, very holy. And then I usually address, because of tradition, we usually ask who gives the bride to be married. I think that gives the mother and dad's blessings. I think that shows the importance of the support behind the mother and dad to support this young couple in making their decisions. Not to make it for them, but to support them, let them know that they're behind them in what they do and in their coming together, committing themselves to life. Then I usually ask the couple, or usually address the couple, and I usually tell them what love is. I usually say, Joe and Belinda, there's nothing easier than saying words, and yet harder than living them day after day. The promises you now make, you must redecide and recommit tomorrow. At the close of this ceremony, legally, you will be husband and wife. But you still must decide each day that stretches out before you that you want to be married. Remind them that this is a ceremony, that you're making a lot of promises and a lot of commitments. But just because you're making those commitments doesn't mean that that's the way they're going to be carried out, unless it's your attitude, unless it's their desire to do it every day. Then I go on to talk to them, and I ask them if they're willing. I want them to make a public acknowledgement to everyone there if they're willing to make that kind of commitment to the person that they're standing with. And I ask them and make them make that acknowledgement out loud. Then I go on to say something to the effect that real love is more than the warmth and the glow, the excitement and romance of being deeply in love. It is caring as much about the welfare and happiness of your marriage partner as that of your own. But true love is not total absorption in each other. It's looking outward in the same direction together. Real love will make burdens lighter because now you can divide them. And it'll make joy far more intense because now you can share it with someone. It's a mystery how God can take two lives and two hearts and blend them into one. But it's one that'll be a source of strength and blessing to you both as long as you shall last. I want them to realize that there's more than just saying words. I want them to realize that love is more than lust. It's caring about the wealth, the welfare, the happiness. It's caring about what goes on through the vows. Sometimes the vows will vary according to what the couple may want to include. But I always, in the vow, make them understand that they are in the presence of God. It's in His witness. It's within His hearing that they are making that covenant, the very sacred commitment to a very sacred institution. Marriage is not easy, but it's rewarding. It's your responsibility as a counselor charged by the Lord Jesus Christ to share the basics, the problem areas, but the strength that God gives to overcome these problems and make it a very, very rewarding, God-lifting, God-honoring. The greatest way to grow a strong church is to grow a strong couple. And the greatest way to grow a strong couple and a strong marriage is to plant those seeds in counseling. So take the time, take the effort, and spend a lot of time in prayer as God leads to meet those needs head on in counseling.